Hello, hello.
Hello.
What's up, guys?
How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
How does
Doing
everything
well.
sound just to start it off? Are you getting everything good? Because you sound good too.
Yeah. You sound great.
Cool.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
Kyle.
Cool.
Great,
Cool.
great, great.
I hear Jim.
Cool. Cool.
Okay,
Cool.
so how I would like to start this, Mr. Blake Crouch, is you have made some lifelong fans in us because of how dark matter has impacted both our podcasts, our friendships, and just like basically everything we've been doing and talking TV. Like dark matter has been the headliner, and you just even giving us your attention and just saying how much you appreciated the podcast, like all of that has been amazing for us. Yeah, so we're lifelong fans, and you're exactly the type of author and content creator that we like to interact with because you're so transparent with the community. And I'm just very appreciative for you taking your time out of your day and talking with us
Yeah.
because dark matter has been
Agreed.
a highlight of 2024 for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I started listening to the podcast. I think actually my editor, we had several editors on the show,
Mhm.
but a guy named Joe Leonard who ended up editing 6 out of the 9 episodes. He texted me, maybe it was episode 2 or 3. I don't remember when. He's like, "You got to check these guys out. Like, they get the show." And I was like, "All right," and I got hooked. And I don't think it was just because you were talking about dark matter, because there's a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of chatter about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Y'all have the three of you have a great vibe, and it was just a joy to listen to.
Yeah. I
Thank you.
really
Really
appreciate
appreciate
that.
that.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And it's we always talked about it. People gave us those types of compliments too in our YouTube comments and like Discord and things like that. But like Luke said, this show, excuse me, made it like easier.
Mhm.
Like it's just like we
Yeah.
were in our element. We're making theories. We're making fun of each other for his dumb theories, just all that type of stuff. So it was just like the perfect storm, the perfect recipe for us. So it was awesome.
I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. And your bands really seem to kind of start digging in and come up
Yeah.
with a lot of cool theories. It was really wild to listen to some stuff you'd be talking about in episode 2 or 3, and like extrapolating out what might happen.
Mhm.
And sometimes it was way off, but sometimes it was
Yes.
like,
Oh yeah.
damn,
Yeah.
they got some
Yeah.
good instincts.
We fell flat a few times,
Yeah.
but
The
we don't
best
shy
part.
away. We don't shy away.
Yeah. Yeah. The best part is always going back to the first few episodes and seeing how wrong we could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I held
You were
on to that
so
rubber
close.
band. Yeah, I held on to that rubber band theory for
Yes,
9
you did.
episodes. I was not letting that go.
I mean, it's funny, the rubber band. That we should come back and we should talk about that a little more. But man, I feel like maybe in the first episode, or maybe it was the second one of you started talking about like, well, I mean, there could be a ton of Jasons, and
Oh,
and I was like,
yes.
oh
Yes.
my god, they're so close to it. They're so close to it. And then it didn't really come back, and it seemed to be a legitimate surprise for you when we
Yeah.
hit episode 7.
So this is a perfect time for me to just get ahead of it. For anybody listener watching this for the first time, we are not book readers, so we are coming at this
Yeah.
from a complete just rookie, just show watchers. We had no background material on this. We didn't have anything spoiled for us. So putting that out there, and then the second thing I'm going to put out there, and this is mostly for you, Blake. I apologize if we use our verbiage or our vernacular that we've used to describe characters because
Like
we got
Evil J.
yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we were lucky enough to get screeners from Apple, so they didn't have the correct subtitles that were actually went out to the public. So just for anybody listening, if we accidentally mix up Jason 1 with OG Jason or Evil J with Jason 2, just be aware that's kind of what we're talking about here. I don't want you
Yeah.
to get confused.
Joel,
We
Joel
we
Edgerton might take a little issue with Jason 2 being called Evil J, but we'll talk about that.
He becomes
Well, I
Redemption J, so we did.
yeah,
did
he
change
does
that.
become Redemption J, and a lot of them worked out for us, a lot of the nicknames, but saying Evil World with Evil Daniela and things
Yeah.
like that really didn't work out. But
Yeah. That definitely bit us in the ass.
yeah.
Oh well. Oh well.
So one of the things we like to do just to kick it off before we get into some of the deeper questions is we like to do a little bit of a rapid fire here. They're mostly just going to be favorites. I have 4 questions for just random questions and then 4 dark matter favorites. So if you're ready for that, you can expand as
Hit
much
me.
as you want. I say rapid, but talk as much as you want here. We
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So
Love
for
it.
the non-dark matter questions, here you go. The first one's going to be, what is your favorite genre of TV and then books if they're different?
I love techno thriller, which is what I write. I write the books and make the TV shows I wish already existed. I love the combination of science, humanity, and emotion.
Perfect. And just to
Love
follow
that.
up to that, do you have a favorite TV show or a favorite book that you did not write yourself?
Twin Peaks is my OG show. The reason probably I'm a writer. I watched it when it came out in 1990. I was 12 years old, and it like just fucked me up in the best possible ways. Um, and it honestly had a lot of those elements. Twin Peaks was, I think, one of the first true shows that didn't care about what genre it was. It was part soap opera, part sci-fi, part psychological thriller, and it just put it all into this blender. And what came out was like nothing I'd ever seen, and like many people had ever seen. Books, I mean, what I read is really eclectic. I'm a huge Cormac McCarthy fan, which is not the kind of stories I tell, but I admire the simplicity of his writing, especially in his latter books. I'm a big Michael Crichton fan for the ideas, not the writing so much, or the characterizations. And I love contemporary novelists. I love Andy Weir, The Martian, Project Hail Mary. He's an absolute genius. And the short fiction of Ted Chiang, who wrote the novella that was adapted into Arrival. He's stone cold genius.
Great answer. We've been recommended Twin Peaks all over the place, so I know
Yeah.
that's something we all wanted to watch at some point.
So I
Follow
haven't
up
seen
too
it.
for
You
that
haven't
one.
watched it?
No, I haven't seen it.
I honestly
Yeah.
think it may be the entire Bingetown crew hasn't seen Twin Peaks, and we've been asked many times to cover it on the podcast, so this is a problem.
I mean, it would be fast. I would absolutely tune in to hear you guys chop up Twin Peaks season 1 and 2.
Yeah, but that's a style of podcast we've kind of gotten away from. We've been really trying to capture shows that are coming out, but we usually we used to, do like a Rooks and Vets type thing where we watch the show with some of us who have watched it for the first time. So our white whale with that has always been Dark, because that show just blew us the three of us here, our minds, and I just like, that's a show I want to watch next to someone who's watching it for the first time. So I'm sure Twin Peaks people would get a kick out of that, of us watching that for the first time.
Yeah.
Everything that we're watching now came from Twin Peaks. Everything.
I'd love to hear that.
That's what we've heard, so it's on the list, definitely.
I'm going to switch gears to the movies now. Do you have a favorite movie that maybe came out recently or all time, either one?
I mean, I think of movies as like, it's hard. What comes to mind? No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers.
Love it.
It's a perfect movie. Mulholland Drive, David Lynch joint.
Okay.
Those are the two like pinnacles to me of filmmaking. The simplicity of No Country. I mean, the movie doesn't even have a score. That's how good it is. It doesn't have a score. That's so hard to do. We can talk about how score works in dark matter and how where it helps and where we pull back, but to make an entire film that has none of that is wild. What else would I say? I love Unforgiven. I think it's another beautiful structured Western. Yeah, those are my three.
That's like my dad's favorite movie.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Okay, two more non-dark matter rapid fires. Favorite sports team?
Carolina Tar Heels. I went to UNC.
Yeah.
I'm a Villanova guy, so I'm
Ah.
about that.
I got my Clemson
Clemson.
Tigers shirt on.
Clemson.
Yeah.
You know, the ACC tournament used to have like 6 teams, and now it has like 55.
Yeah.
teams.
Oh yeah.
Well, now, the ACC also has West Coast teams in it now, which is crazy.
I
Right.
can't go with that.
That's neither here nor there.
And then here is the last one I have written down that might actually be a good segue into the dark matter questions, being if you were forced to switch industries, what career path do you think you would have taken? Or another way to ask it is, what is Blake 2 up to?
What's Evil Blake doing?
Yeah, Evil Blake.
Evil Blake's a lawyer. Evil Blake's a lawyer.
Okay.
You're like Blair.
Totally. No, that's why this is where that came from. When I was I wanted to write. I was always a writer. I started telling my brother bedtime stories when he was 6 years old. And I was like 10, just scaring the shit out of him. But when I went to university, there didn't seem to be an obvious like, oh, you're going to be a writer. I was writing, but didn't seem like something I was going to make money at. So I thought, I guess I'll just go to law school. I like arguing. I have a sense of justice and injustice. Let's try that. But I didn't really want to do it because I only applied to one law school, which was UNC Chapel Hill, and I got waitlisted.
Hmm.
And I wasn't even upset about it. I was like, I almost felt like, okay, good.
Yeah.
And I think if I had gotten in, I definitely would have gone. And I'm sure I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys. I don't know if I would have kept writing. Maybe what would have happened is I would have gotten pulled into that career, done that for 20 or 30 years. And then when you start slowing down, maybe have come back later in my life, 50s to writing. And a lot of writers I know are lawyers and wrote their first novel in their 50s when their practices started running down. So Evil Blake is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sounds like
Evil
most
Kyle-
Blakes eventually become writers.
Yeah. Evil Kyle almost went to UNC Chapel Hill, but Evil Kyle got waitlisted. Or I got waitlisted. Evil Kyle got in.
Evil Kyle got in, yeah.
So that's pretty funny.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's good.
Okay, so I'm ready to switch gears to dark matter. The reason we are here.
Yes,
These are
yes.
just going to be just favorite parts of the show, essentially. So the first one I like to ask is, which character in the show embodied the performance that you felt you were writing when you originally wrote the book? Who came the closest to the source character?
Wow, that's a great question.
Not a rapid fire one, I guess.
It's not a rapid fire one.
Take your time.
I mean, I'm having to go back and think of the book, and
Yeah.
I mean, probably Daniela. And it's not a judgment on one actor doing a better job than the other. I think they all did incredible work, but it came the closest to the core character that was in the book. And it's not a surprise because when Jennifer came on and agreed to do the show, she read the book, and I mean, she had like this whole book that was all marked up, and it was her. I mean, she would always go to the book. It was her Bible while we were filming. And you know, but I mean, so many other characters went off, and like Joel did such a different take on Jason than is in the book. He did, I think, a much more grounded take, and I would say Daniela too. But Daniela was a much more minor character in the book. There's no Daniela Jason 2 storyline in the book. That was all purely from the show.
When
the
we
book
found
is all
that out,
Jason. Yeah.
When we found that out, we were fascinated.
Yeah.
It was just to know that whole side of things. That's why we were saying it's perfect to be able to have you as the creator, writer of the book, have the chance to expand on your world here and give us the other side, because obviously with us not being book writers or readers, we had no idea that other side
was omitted. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was all Jason, single player POV Jason.
Wow.
No, that's not true. There's one chapter from Daniela's point of view, and it comes after the midpoint of the book. And it is like a very short 4-page chapter of Daniela musing on all the things that Jason 2 is doing differently from Jason. And a lot of those things made their way into that conversation she has with Blair. He flosses, you know, he leaves his shoe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Quick tangent on that is, did that come up in the writer's room, or is that something that you, when you finished the book, it got published, all the copies got sent away, and you kind of moved on, you looked back on it and were like, dang, that was kind of a missed opportunity. Like, if I could write the book again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I ever really felt I wish I could write the book again. There were definitely moments where I was like, I mean, there's a version of Dark Matter that's, 600 pages, and but I don't write this I write fast, lean books. I just, with lots of white space on the pages. That's just what I do. It came about intentionally. It was one of the reasons I wanted to do the show when that opportunity arose, because I thought, well, that's an entire undiscovered land of cool story. And in fact, the very brief writer's room that I convened, that's literally all we did was break that part of the show.
Oh, wow. I guess that makes sense.
So the next one I have written down, and this one actually might be a quick one, is, what was your favorite scene to write and shoot?
Wow. It's harder than you think, because there's so many of them that I love the one. I think the scene of Jason having a beer with himself
Yes.
in the bar was it was one of those things that's like, is this really going to work? Like when you see this on camera, will we believe it, or will it be silly?
No, we believed it.
And it was so fun to translate into the script. It also it weirdly came at just the right moment, like it was needed in that moment in that episode, because the intention of up to that point is like, hey audience, you're not supposed to know which Jason you're following. You can be lost in this moment, be completely lost, and this is what he feels. And so it really served this kind of cool purpose in our minds of, well, we're going to give the audience a little bit of a hand here to understand what just happened, because they're going through a lot of things. I thought it was just a brilliant. I thought it was shot brilliantly by the director Alec Sarkov, who did the first 3 episodes of The Witcher and did a bunch of Game of Thrones, and shot almost. He was a cinematographer and shot almost every episode of The Sopranos. And
Wow.
Joel just crushed it. And then Joe Leonard, my editor, he literally in the first cut of that scene he sent me, he had that Bob Dylan song, Visions of Joanna, in it. And I was really pleased with how that came together. And I would say the Plague World moment as a close second, followed by the scene with Amanda and her mom. All of those just really like kind of surprised everyone on the day. You could just feel their power as you were on set.
Even you just saying those words right there, the Plague World, Amanda and her mom, like just takes me back almost to watching it and talking about it. So, yeah. Damn.
It's definitely not a rapid fire question. There's so many good scenes. And I feel like I probably would have, like, obviously I'm not the one writing the show, but I feel like that's the scene for me. With Joel talking to himself, Jason talking to himself. That was when we saw that scene and we came onto the podcast, we were like, oh my gosh.
And so the first time I watched that. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say an unsung hero of that scene is the bartender and how he reacts to seeing the two Jasons.
He's so good.
Yeah, so funny.
William, his name is William. He's so good. He steals all these little scenes in these moments. He's like, he was so freaking incredible. It was weird. So the way it kind of works when you're making TV and you're the showrunner is that the first time you see an episode is they give you the director's cut. So before I ever start working with my editor, the director gets a number of days and they do their thing. And 108 dropped in, and we're like, wow, what should we do? And this is what we did. We fired up a joint. Jackie and I sat on this couch and we're like, let's just see. And it was literally maybe the best viewing experience I've ever had. I had like this distance from it. It didn't feel like my show. And I was like, this is crazy. This is insane. It was an amazing director's cut that changed very little. It was the best one we had in the whole series.
That's so funny, because if I'm not mistaken, that is the episode where I even mentioned on the podcast that I turned to my cat and I was like, "This is how you create tension. Like this is television, baby."
Yeah.
So that's
oh
really
my
funny.
gosh!
Yeah. We had somewhat similar viewing experiences.
And talk about like early episode theories, Kyle. I think it was you who had the Illuminati tattoo. You were like, "I see that tattoo on your forearm for the bartender," and we thought it was something. But I mean, you got the sign, the different colors in the signs, the neon signs that matter, just because we're in the different worlds. But yeah, we were like looking at every little thing.
That was it was one of the reasons I was really excited when I started listening to you guys, because we put a ton of Easter eggs in the show and there's all these little differences. And I was always of the mind that, I mean, I think some people will notice. I don't think a lot of people will notice. They'll be more caught up in the story. And Jackie was always like, no, we've got to do this. Trust me, I'm that kind of a viewer. I look for this stuff. So we did. And when you guys started picking up like the difference of the tattoos that he has and the bartender has in episode 1 and 2, and the sign color and all these little variations in the worlds that we slipped in there, it was really cool to see people following those and actually appreciating it. And it just goes to show, like, don't ever talk down to the audience. Trust the audience is smart and never dumb anything down.
That was very well said. And my follow-up might be the same answer here. I was going to ask what your favorite overall episode was. Would it be episode 8?
Yeah, it's neck and neck for two of them. I think the fourth it's hard. The fourth episode and the 8th episode I love them for different reasons, but they both encapsulate the premise of dark matter. Episode 4 is like, okay, maybe you thought you were watching this weird psychological drama of things, and it just explodes out this entire idea of the box, the corridor, many worlds.
Yeah.
I love that it does that. And episode 8 plays in the space of multiple versions of ourselves, and I think they both do it really, really well. But I will say, like, episode 5 also has a real soft spot for me because I think it's the most sheerly emotional of all of the episodes. And I was really happy with how so many of those sequences came together. So I don't know, for me, it's like 4, 5, 8 are like neck and neck, but I could be swayed to, point out the attributes of others.
And
Rapid
then
fire. I would love to hear what you guys. Luke, what's your favorite? On the
ooh,
spot.
Oh. What's your favorite, Luke? Rapid fire?
that's hard. I gotta think about it. I didn't expect a question in return. Hold on.
I could step in here. I want to say 7, only because the ending of 7 was
Yes.
just unbelievable. Like,
That
couldn't
scene.
That's it.
couldn't
Right.
not text everyone I knew that was watching. Just like that blew my mind. So
That was another
well.
scene I should have said is like one of my favorites. That one, like that was the one when even before I like ever opened a final draft document and started writing scripts, I was like, I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
hope we
us
can
on the
do it
podcast,
justice.
we were like rewatching it live on the podcast, being like, okay, he's like the pinky's messed up, but
Yeah.
like, is it him? Like, which way did
PBJ.
it go?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like, oh my gosh.
I think I would say 8, but honestly, 7, the ending, like we were just talking about, was just unbelievable. I think you can tell by my emotions specifically on the podcast when we were doing it live, because I believe I was the one in episode 1 or 2 that said there could be a million Jasons, not
That was
just,
it.
So I said it in the episode 7 podcast. I fully let it go. I was like, it's episode 7. There's 2 more left. They can't do it, can they? They can't have this happen now. And I was like, how the heck are we going to add this wrinkle at the very end of episode 7 with 2 left and then have a clean ending? And obviously, I did say I trusted you, and I'm glad I trusted you because it was perfect. But it blew my mind having that happen, where I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe that could happen all the way in the beginning. I let it go for 5 episodes, and then boom, it happens. And whew, we were like, where the heck is this going to go now? And I remember you specifically tweeted saying the game will be changed after episode 7, and we had the screener, so we had already seen it, and we're not allowed to really say anything. And all of us were talking to each other like, are we allowed to tweet at Blake and say hell yeah? Like, damn right, like something like that. But then we were like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. We'll wait.
Yeah, we had so much fun picking a song for the end of that because we knew that like the song we had to have a banger. I love the song we had. We had another song we could not clear. We can talk about songs at some point. Oh my god, it's like the one that got away.
I thought you crushed the song selections. I was actually bringing it up almost every episode. I think especially earlier, like how the drops would have, like the credits would roll and then like hard rap would play or like just bumping
That was
music. All of
episode
it was
1,
so good.
right? Episode 1's
Yeah.
the credit song. I was like, woo.
It's Kids These Days. Chicago. It's a Chicago band. We heard it like before we'd ever went to Chicago. We were like greenlit, but we hadn't moved yet. And so my wife, partner in crime, life, all things, Jackie, has a pretty rock and discover weekly list on Spotify, and that song came on. And I was like, what the fuck is that? That is incredible. And literally in that moment, I was like, that is the end of episode, because the script was written. We hadn't even cast this. I was like, that is the ending song of episode 1.
Wow.
I love to hear
Love
it.
that.
And,
Yeah.
and just to throw my answer out there, I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite episode. I was a huge fan of the finale. I like how it ended. But I was a huge fan of the corridor episode because something you mentioned earlier where about the 2 Jasons talking to each other, you were throwing the audience a bone, like kind of having a meta conversation where you're answering some of these questions. That's my favorite thing when TV shows start giving audiences answers that lesser shows would kind of ignore and save for the finales. And the corridor is where we finally started getting hard sci-fi made up answers to the box. And I'm a sucker for all of that. So that's my, that's my soft answer without thinking more. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah,
This
this
is
isn't
more.
really.
We gave you all the time in the world to think of that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I was thinking because we're taking some of the good answers there is why. But here's my last question. That's just in the rapid fire section. We could just keep going on. Is what is your favorite universe that they showed in Dark Matter?
Oh, this is
Or
gonna
maybe
break into
most
a million other
interesting, either
questions
one.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, so there are 33 worlds. In fact,
Wow.
one of the crew guests at the end, one of our amazing PAs, created this T-shirt that is like it looks like an old school Metallica tour from like
Oh,
the late 80s, and it's like Dark Matter Worlds Tour, and it has
Oh.
every single world listed, and
That is
all of
cool.
the, because we all had these little inside joke names that we call them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
God, I don't know, man. That's a whew. I mean, there are like, so I think I break them into different like categories. So it's like worlds that they actually go out into and explore. And then you have these little tease worlds. Like I love, we called it no atmosphere world. You could also call it the Eye of Sauron
Yes.
world.
yes.
In
Yeah.
fact, the first time we saw an early cut of that of VFX, it was much more Eye of Sauron. And Jackie was like, "Oh, great, we're doing Lord of the Rings now." And it's like, what are you talking about? She's like, "That's the Eye of Sauron." I was like, "Fuck, it is the Eye of Sauron." So we had to tweak it a little bit. I
Yeah.
loved how that one came together. We like consulted with our physics consultants, Dr. Clifford Johnson, who helped us design the box, who like literally
Cool.
is my guy. He helped me on Dark Matter, the book, way back in
That's cool.
2016, and we were like talking about what would happen if you opened a door and there's no atmosphere, and there's just fascinating conversation. So it was fun to get the physics of that one right. I love that. I love the underwater world, partly just
Yeah.
I know what went into making that. It was the most physically demanding on the actors, and it was logistically the most expensive second for second thing that we did in the entire show.
Makes sense. My heart was racing that scene.
Yeah.
And we had talked about it, I think,
I
in
said
the episode before. Yeah, like what happens
Yeah.
if they just open it into water and then the next
Yeah.
episode happened? We
Yeah.
were like, oh,
And a
Yeah.
little side tangent, without a question, is one of the best things that we found about this show. Luke kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, is the amount of answers we get while having other questions be asked a little bit later. There are so many things that we were ready to just let go, quote unquote, and just be like, all right, this show, we're really enjoying it, but we don't need that answer. We'll just keep going. And then we get the answer, just little things that a lot of shows will just push away and just move forward with the plot.
Yeah.
And every single episode we're getting all of these answers, and it's making us feel super satisfied each individual episode, while knowing there's still overarching questions to be answered within the next however many episodes are left in the show. And that was one of the biggest things we definitely appreciated as podcasters and as viewers, because we're asking so many questions every single episode. And again, we cover so many different shows and we ask a lot of questions, and most of the time they don't get answered. And in this show, there was a lot of questions being answered that we weren't expecting.
Well, I mean, thank you. It was always important to us to I don't know, I don't ever want the audience to feel like we're just like winging it. Like there's years of thought goes into creating a story. And I mean, there are some writers who I respect immensely, and they're like, whatever, it's cool as long as everyone's having a nice time.
Yes.
But I am one of those readers and writers who's like, I need to like know that you've thought this through, because when I start asking too many questions that don't get answered, I don't think about the story anymore. I'm like, you guys don't have it, and then I'm out. So for us, it was always like, we're not going to like bore people with answers, but we want them to know like we have answers.
Yes. And it's a word that maybe I don't describe or hear television or movies even described, but rewarding. It felt rewarding to watch episodes, to find answers out, to think things through. And that's not a feeling I feel like you maybe get often, depending on the type of show. I mean, sitcoms aren't really, they don't play in the realm of rewarding and answering and asking questions. But yeah, it was just like a feeling that every time after an episode, almost, it was like, wow, okay, like I feel good that like we talked about this, it happened, or we didn't talk about this and it happened, but it led to this question that I can't wait to talk about.
Have y'all watched Lost? Is that
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I watched that coming up. There's a show out right now that reminds me a lot of Lost. In fact, it has some of the same actors called From. Have y'all watched From?
That is like next on my list. So many people are. It's MGM Plus, so it's like Beacon 23, Kyle.
Yeah.
That was another show that we were going to cover. We covered season 1, but it's on my list, and I just haven't had a chance because it was MGM Plus, and I haven't gotten a chance
Yeah.
to get that streaming
It,
service.
it's a little bit what you're talking about, and in every show that's like in the Lost sort of sphere, it's like how many questions do you throw out to the audience before you start providing answers? And From, I'm like obsessed with it, and my kids are obsessed with it, and we love it. Like we're like halfway through the second season, and I feel like you guys have asked a lot of questions without answering anything. And I will go along with some stuff if I'm caught up in the plot and the characters, and I am for the most part. But I'm like, it's time. I need
Give us some
something.
answers. Yeah.
Even
Mhm.
if the answer asks another question, which is like the trick. I need to know that you
Yeah.
guys know, because I can't get burned again. I can't do Lost again.
Yeah. So I'm going to be watching that soon, and I'll let you know. From is definitely on the top of my list. So I've been seeing so many YouTube videos about theories for From, just maybe because there's so many questions that aren't answered yet. It's just so popular to have all these theories because they're not giving you anything. But I mean, I'm a theory
Literally
guy,
nothing.
so I love it.
Yeah.
I'll talk theories. As you could tell from the podcast, I will talk theories for hours, and we had to stop ourselves when it came to
Episode
lots of the
7.
theories that we had.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't want to get away from the worlds yet. So when it came to the 33 worlds, again, we don't know anything from the book. So are some of these from the books, and then some were made for the TV show? Did you have them conceptualized already when you were writing the book? How did that work?
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything from the book, any
Wow.
world from the book that is not in the show.
Oh,
And there are
Oh,
there
okay.
are
Okay.
there
Okay.
are worlds in the show that are not in the book.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay.
Now I
So
have worlds that were in the first draft of Dark Matter that have not been in anything,
okay.
and because they're just too insane.
okay. Now here's the question. I'm bringing it up right now. I need to know about the forest world with the animal / werewolf. We thought ScarJ was there when we
Mhm.
got talking about answers being given. Something that we didn't need, but we very much appreciated and felt like a reward was getting the answer for who we call ScarJ and how he even got the scar. And it was devastating. The whole Amanda being stuck under the tree and everything like that. But we were hoping the werewolf got him and
Mhm.
her. What was the animal? What was it? Do you know?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, well, let us know if you can.
So the first show that I ever made was called Wayward Pines.
Mm-hmm.
M. Night Shyamalan directed the pilot episode. I love the first season. The second
Yeah.
season lost its way.
Mm.
There are these creatures in Wayward Pines called. I don't want to ruin anything for you. If you haven't seen it. It's actually a pretty giant reveal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I don't want to ruin anything. It's a nod to Wayward Pines.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I like that.
when we're doing this podcast and we're saying werewolf this, werewolf that, book readers, would they have realized it was the nod?
Oh yes, many
okay,
many
okay.
many people tweeted at me and emailed me and
That's
was
awesome.
like,
That's
"Is that
perfect.
that?" I was like, "Yeah, that's that." They're like,
That's
"Cool."
perfect. So we're saying werewolf, werewolf, and people were like, "Come on, idiots!"
That's
It's
funny.
okay. Scar.
I love that you thought
Scar.
I love that you think ScarJ like tangled with one of those. That's hilarious.
And you know what's great is if you didn't give us his backstory, I was gonna plan
was
on coming
canon,
onto
yeah.
this interview and ask you to canonize that for us if there was no answer, of course. But it seems that was thought out.
Yeah.
I mean, we did say on the podcast, like, just based on how this show was written, and obviously everyone talking about the book to the show, we assumed that you had stories for all these worlds, or at least
Yeah.
knew. So
Mhm.
we were gonna ask to canonize it, but we had low hopes for that because we figured there's some answers. And
Yeah.
we're obviously now we're huge fans, and we're gonna be starting to read. And maybe we'll talk about that towards the end when it comes to some season 2 stuff, if that exists. But yeah, I don't want any spoilers because I'm going to be reading and watching.
And here's a question off the back of that is this could be just hearsay, not true, but one of the comments that we got on our YouTube video, maybe like 4 or 5 episodes back, they were saying that at some point, maybe it was a tweet, maybe it was like in an interview that you gave basically a statement that said, I wrote a book, I wrote a show, the show's better. Is that
Mhm.
something that you actually said? And is that something you stand by where if nobody has been introduced to either of the book or the show, you would recommend taking the show route first to get introduced to the world of dark matter?
Yeah, I would. And I did say that. I said that. I think I said that when Apple announced the show. And we were putting out the first images of key art. And I honestly do believe it's better because of Jennifer and Joel and Dio and Jimmy and Elise and Oaks. Like those actors really they grounded this crazy premise and they made it feel, I think, even more real than it felt in the book. And I love the book, and honestly, I wouldn't go back and change anything. Like, right, regret literally what the whole fucking thing's about.
Right.
But I think the show explores the ideas to their fullest extent. And I mean, when you have actors at this level performing at this level, it's hard to look at the source material and say that is superior. It's different and it's aside from it all, but the show feels closer to like whatever the platonic ideal of this idea is. I think the show gets closer to it than the book does.
Okay.
That's
Love that
awesome. I mean,
answer.
we had someone, a nice viewer had commented a couple times. I believe it's AJ Reese on YouTube had even said that this Dark Matter was his favorite book ever, and he was
Wow.
enjoying the show more than he enjoyed the book. And that was we talked about it a little bit on the podcast too. Of there's almost no better feeling. Like big Wheel of Time fan. The show, not to say that it's bad, but like it was a slight disappointment because I had read the books and because you're coming in with all these preconceived notions. And we're even seeing it with House of the Dragon of people want these, letter by letter adaptations and
Yeah.
just that feeling as a book reader was probably
Mhm.
fantastic.
It
Excuse
is,
me.
but what's cool about it is it's really like if you guys read the book, you'll see I mean, there are moments that are absolutely
Yeah.
word for word, letter for letter, but there's also wild departures. And I mean, look, it's all anecdotal. I don't have the view of what everyone in the world thinks of it, but what I've seen is the people who love the book really loved the show. And that means so much to me because I think adaptations should not just be direct offsprings of the source. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
It should bring something new. Like in the book, Amanda leaves Jason a letter on a desk in a hotel, and that's the last we ever see of her.
Oh, okay.
And the biggest question I got after the book from people was like, what happened to Amanda? Where did she go? And the show was a chance to improve upon their goodbye. And there are a lot of moments like that. And that's why I think it elevates above the novel. As much as I love the novel and it changed my life, writing it and publishing it, the show is better.
That's incredible to hear just because like the courage it takes for you to just step away from your project and look at it in an unbiased way and give that sort of stamp of approval. It's just so cool to see. Like you're the type of transparent author creator that we need more in 2024 when the internet's so integral to like fan connections. So we love hearing that. But one thing you did just mention that I can't leave. I gotta just talk about it now while we're bringing it up. But you mentioned Jennifer Connelly and Joel Edgerton. Like they're stars. Like the term A-lister gets thrown around every once in a while, but like they are truly like A-lister stars. My question to you is one, like how did it feel working with them as your debut show for Apple? And then two, how involved for picking those specific actors are you? Or is a casting director take precedent for choosing the actual actors that ending up in the show?
So in the case of Joel, we were not greenlit yet. We had a director on who did not turn out to be the director of the first 3 episodes, but we had a director attached, and we had just started discussing amongst ourselves like who should we approach to be Jason Destin, and then we got an incoming call from WME, William Morris. They're like, hey, so Joel Edgerton read the book and loved it. He heard that there was maybe a show getting put together and would love to Zoom with you guys. And we're like, seriously? It's like, all right,
You're in. Got it.
sure. So we jump on a Zoom with Joel, and this would be like November of 22. No, November of 21. And he's at his house in Australia, and super early there. It's super late here. And me and my producer Matt Tolmack we just start talking to him, and we're just like trying to be cool, but like we're also like texting each other like, holy shit, that is fucking Jason Desson, dude. And we're both like, just be cool, just be cool, just be cool. And so we had this really great conversation with him, and I obviously admire Joel and knew like some of his movies and stuff, Uncle Owen and Warrior and things like that. But I didn't have like this massive understanding of what he would bring. And so we had one more Zoom. At the end of it, he was like, "So I'd like to toss my hat into the ring." That never ever happens in this business. You go begging and pleading, and we're like, we would love that too. So
yeah, it's such a compliment.
Joel came, and that was Joel, and Joel came on. We lost Jim.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll let him back in when he joins.
Yeah, no worries.
So, and then we hired a casting director. Once you get greenlit, you get a casting director, and what they do is
the casting director was hired after Jason had already joined the show. Or Joel as Jason.
After Joel joined the show.
Like the get, and then it's like, okay, maybe we need a casting director.
It's just like when it's appropriate. Like after the green light, then you've got so much work to do. And for Jennifer, it was similar, although it was not an incoming call. It was a little similar because we had this meeting with our casting director, Mary Vernew, and she like just gave us this short list, and Jennifer was on it, and we're like, really? Would she would read this, and there were scripts. She would read the scripts. She was like, yeah, we can send them. And literally 2 weeks later, I was on a Zoom with Jennifer, and we were talking about Daniela. And I had worked with other actors before, and like really great actors. What's different about them is, well, I'll talk about Joel first. Joel is not just an actor; he's a writer and he's a director. So before we ever cast anyone else, and it was literally the week that we were greenlit, I got together with Joel in Los Angeles for about 4 days for like a dark matter summit. There were 4 scripts. We had the book, and we're like, and some outlines, and we wanted to talk about everything. The idea for Max came from Joel.
Wow.
He had new twins at the time, and his comment was, it would be really cool if it wasn't just this perfect life that Jason was trying to get home to. If there was some underneath the surface trauma that had also defined them, and that he wanted to get back to that life even in spite of it, and maybe even because of it.
Yeah.
Wow. And I was like, fuck. He
That's
did that.
so good.
He did that like constantly. There's a line at the end of 7 when he's I know you thought he was gonna like hold the ring up to the corridor, and it was like gonna unlock his world. That the moment I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
it was all right, I guess.
it was this big monologue, and there was a whole monologue from the book. There was like all these versions we had written for the script, and we're sort of cobbling together and just doing a bunch of takes and because we knew we would cut them all together. And then he, out of nowhere, he says this line, maybe it's the imperfections of life that amount to a different kind of perfection. Ad-libbed on the day.
Wow.
In the
Oh
moment.
my gosh. He must be a reader.
He's a reader. He's a triple threat, man.
Wow.
There's no one like him.
That's so interesting to hear, because that felt like such a big part of the show to me, was that idea that Jason 1 and Daniela didn't have this perfect relationship.
Right.
Maybe Jason had this rose-colored idea of their relationship, because we were really interested in episode 1 when Daniela's talking to Blair, and Blair says training for a triathlon, there's other ways to get away from your family, or I don't remember the exact way she says it. And we were like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
So that was just, and then knowing that Evil Jason 2 couldn't possibly, you can't replicate that level of emotion and connection over time. So yeah, that's unbelievable that he thought of that. And we were big fans of the Max stuff too. We were like, Jimmy was like, Max is gonna be a
He's
thing.
coming back. We're gonna see him. Yeah.
Oh no,
That's
you
so-
totally call that. You totally call that. Yeah. No, it was like, it's one of those like hairs on the back of your neck moments. I was like, that's a home run idea.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
we're
so
doing that.
cool.
And like Jennifer at Plague World, that scene exists because of her. I wasn't going to do it.
Wow.
I had not written it because I was writing these scripts during COVID. And in the aftermath of it, I was like, nobody wants to hang out in a pandemic. Like, that's just all we're thinking about. But then you get into production, and that's 2 years later, and you realize, oh, the show's going to be out in 24. I think it's a really powerful scene.
It was. Yeah.
And I literally, that it exists because she advocated for it. And we would do page turns between every episode, and they'd come to our apartment, and we'd just go through the scripts, and we talk about it, and we talk about life. And it was really a incredibly beautiful and rare experience.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And Jennifer was unbelievable with even like the facial acting, the body language, the way she was just kind of eyeing up Jason too. All those, like, everything worked so well together. Her progression as a character was so believable. It was so real. It was so emotional. And she was just fantastic.
I wonder how she'd feel about us calling her Evil Daniela.
Well,
that was a
whole
fun
thing,
of the world.
Joel's whole thing was like, and actors universally want to find the good in the characters, no matter how nefarious they are, because they have to find some humanity in them.
Yeah.
Except for that guy in No Country for Old Men. There's no humanity there.
By definition.
So yeah, it was always about how Jason, like how at the end how do we find his humanity?
Yeah. We were saying it the entire time, when it comes to Evil Jay, no matter what, he's still Jason. He's still a version of the Jason that our OG ride or die Kyle Jason is still a version of him. Having him get his redemption J arc makes sense, because deep down he really is still a Jason.
They're all Jason,
right?
And the same violence that Jason 2 was capable of, Jason 1 is capable of. It's just that, and we talked a lot about this, the moderating effect of having a family, of having kids, which necessitates putting others before yourself, kind of tamp down some of those tendencies, but they absolutely are present in Jason 1. They're not like wild, differently colored shades of a person. It's not like green Jason and yellow Jason and black Jason. It's like they are all shades of the same. It's all shades of a red or a blue. Like, they don't go that far apart.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of the show, is when Jason 1, they're in the hotel, and he says, I'm thinking some wild thoughts. I like kind of understand how he did what he did. And that was like, oh man, or is this show going to turn into, I didn't think the ending was going to be that bleak, but like he just becomes another version of the version of himself that he hates, that ruined his life. And that was just like an interesting concept. I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, because we're talking about the different versions of Jason, and based on what you were saying before, it seemed Joel was pretty just tapped into what this character is supposed to be. But as a writer, having to write scenes where there's going to be multiple versions of him, how many direct notes do you give to him on like on how to play different versions of himself with different tendencies and different ways of speaking? Or is it mostly just write the script and see how Joel puts his own take on everything?
You can't tell someone how to do that. Like, they either know how to do it instinctively, or your show's going to fail. He early on, I think he probably realized that he was going to make it differences of degrees, not miles. And it was going to be about very small things. Like, if you look at the way Jason 2 even holds his jaw, he holds it with a tension that is not there with Jason 1. And there's a lot of other things. Like, obviously he does all the things that he does, and it's not me telling him, oh, do this. Like, that's why you hire Joel Edgerton, because they know how to do that. But there's a lot of little subtle things you can do with like wardrobe, for instance. So Jason 2 wears all of Jason 1's clothes,
Mhm.
but he wears them with a little bit of
A little more
pizzazz.
swag. Yeah.
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 You know,
Looking good.
he
Yeah.
might roll the jeans up, you know. He might
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
that he might have that button down instead of up.
No wrinkles on it.
No wrinkles on it. He's gonna wear it differently, even if it's the same clothing.
Mhm.
And then you come into score and you let the score support it. So there's a lot of little subtle things you can do to help, but I mean, without the performance, it's nothing.
Totally
Was
agree,
it
yeah.
was it ever funny? I don't know how involved you were in the actual filming of things, but
I
watching
lived in
him.
Chicago. I was on set every
Okay.
day. We lived
So,
in
That's awesome.
Chicago
just
for it. We moved to Chicago for it.
kind of
Wow.
ever watching him like speak to no one, and then I know it probably wasn't as if he was delivering the line and then he would walk over to the other spot, turn around and deliver the response, but like was it ever like funny moments like that where it's just
It's
having to
weird
get in the
because
head of it?
yeah. I mean, he had stunt doubles, but he also had acting doubles.
Oh well.
The stunt doubles are the guys who get like pushed downstairs. The acting doubles are the guys who, you know, we had this
Actually
really
respond to them
good.
and work with them.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch
Yeah.
of them, and
Wow.
and it's like, which one do you feel like the most comfortable working with, and who do you feel like is gonna help you the most? And we hired that guy, and so you shoot the scene, and the acting double is saying all of like if Joel's playing Jason 2, acting double's playing Jason 1, he's saying all of Jason 1's lines, and you do that, and then you swap it, and how
That's
he
cool.
kept track of that stuff is utterly beyond me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Even when it comes to the fight, because he was having to say to our incredible stunt double, his name's Tim, you know, that like the fight in the bathroom at the college,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like when Tim's on the other side, he's like, you have to fight like me. You're a bad, like Tim's a badass. He's like, you can't be a badass. You have to fight like a physics
Yeah,
professor.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. And yeah, like you're saying too, with the tension in the jaw, like delivering a line
Mhm.
and being one version and the subtle changes like that, just keeping all of that straight in your head is
Yeah.
just amazing. That's what
Mhm.
what a well done job.
So if you guys are ready, I'm ready to get into like the nitty gritty of legitimate plot questions, clearing things up and you know, posing them. And
Yeah.
obviously, the elephant in the room is if there's going to be a season 2, if you even want there to be a season 2, and then if it does get greenlit. So like how you're thinking about the ending of the show might change.
Yeah.
If you can even give us some of these answers.
Sure.
But just to start it off light, one of the things that I would
Light.
say light, exactly. My favorite consequence of the plot of the show was the Jason chat room. And
Mm.
I guess what I wanted to ask you was, did you just get in the writer's room and just have a blast writing these text message and just actually going through and making these jokes and then making these moments where one Jason says, hey, let's team up and betray them, and the three more the other Jasons pop up? I just wanted to ask like how that came to be and how fun that was to write.
Did y'all freeze frame it and read
Oh
the
yeah.
comments?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, we in the book there was a chat room in the book. There was not the video component, but it was still a chat room in the book. So there's a lot to pull from the book itself. But we're like, we want to have more of it. We want to take it further. We want to reference some things that happened, like the car crash, and like just kind of be a little wild with it. We felt it was not a time to be restrained, because either most people probably wouldn't really read it. They catch a line or two and keep on with the show. But the people who did freeze frame were like, let's give them something fun to
Yeah.
contemplate. Like my assistant at the time, Miles, wrote some of the stuff. He wrote, I forget, something about one of us had to be a Rambo. Something
Yeah,
like
we were
that.
saying Rambo, Jason. That
Rambo's
was our
is good.
vernacular after that.
Yeah. I like the escort of the F-18s was funny.
Yeah.
That gave me a good laugh too. Now,
Yeah.
my question, goofy question, but so that we mentioned, or they mentioned rather, the lottery system, joint custody. Now, did a talent show ever
Yes, we wanna
did
know.
that hit the cutting room floor? Was that ever something that was like, maybe we need a third option here? Just curious.
There's a line from the book. I don't think it's in the show. It still gets fuzzy for me. Where she's like, they want to raffle me off like a fucking fruit basket.
Yeah.
It was tricky. That was like that moment
It's
of
a serious
episode
moment.
9 was
Yeah.
real, and it wasn't as serious in the book, because in the book you're not with Daniela the whole time.
Right.
And the truth is, she's not able to consent to him. She doesn't understand who that is. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have led with that pitch when we sold the show, but that's the
Yeah.
truth.
Mhm.
So in the book, it's a lot more like they have this. It's a little more bantery in the book because she was like, he talks a little bit about. He goes further when he's talking about Daniela too, or sorry, evil Daniela.
Yes. Thank you. I didn't know who you were talking about.
He goes a little. Like who?
Who?
She's
Who's
so
that?
she's so dastardly. He goes a little bit further and he talks about like well in the book he sleeps with her.
We knew it. We knew it.
And they have this like, oh well, it's not it's not cheating because it's another version. Yeah, it's kind of fun and like
We talked about it.
Yeah.
but when you live with Daniela and Jason too throughout the entire show, those scenes take on a lot more weight, and you have to address. You can't just like gloss over what happened. And so yeah, we had a lot of cool ideas for that stuff, but it ended up playing much more sober and somber because it's a horrifying reality.
Yeah.
It worked. And it was again something that maybe if you had infinite time, they could have had a multiple day conversation about everything that he went through and everything that she went through. But I thought the way that it was done, I thought it worked really well, and that she was very honest and was just like, that's all I'm willing to say for now. He gave her a little bit of, they got a smile out of it at the end. They had that nice moment that they really needed, that alone time. And I loved too, I mentioned on the podcast, but when they're at the dinner table and they're talking about the different worlds and it starts getting a little romantic, and then Charlie just kind of slides.
Oh, gonna get out of here.
Charlie's like,
yeah, that was so good.
See where this is going. Yeah,
I loved that. That was perfect.
But while we're talking about the chat rooms, this is, I don't even know if you have an answer in your head for this, but do you have a hard number for how many Jasons made it to the original world?
It's
If not,
probably
we're breaking
like
news right now.
It's probably like several hundred.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love
I don't think it can't be
spokesperson
can't be
Jason
thousands.
that nominates himself to speak on all the other Jasons around the box. He was a good one. Yeah.
Jason Admin.
Jason Admin.
Oh, you talking about Admin Jason? Yeah.
Admin Jason.
We were wondering too, who is Jason Admin? He's very organized.
He's a leader.
Yeah,
that's good. I mean, the aftermath in that world, I'm so glad I'm not a forensic investigator or anything like that, because it's like, how is there all this DNA everywhere?
Totally.
That's funny.
So that's what I was gonna say is, if you do get greenlit for a season 2, my one bucket item wish would be just to get a glimpse into the OG world, even if we don't go back to it, just to see how it's shaked out legally and how many people died and like what the news would end up being like with all these people popping out, because that would be amazing TV just to see a little clip and checking back in on the original world.
Yeah. Oh, I would ask you guys if there were to be a season 2, what's the bucket list or wish list items?
Oh.
More Ryan. Give me more Ryan.
Yeah, always more Ryan. So actually, Luke, do you have more questions that lead up to season 2 talk? Because I feel like maybe our questions will lead into what our bucket list would be too. Because obviously we have epilogue stuff we need to talk about.
I think it's open. I think it's just open the floor. Let's just say what you're thinking. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Kyle's laughing here. What do we want to talk about first?
Ryan,
I like the Ryan question.
Ryan and Amanda.
So let's talk about Ryan and Amanda. And
Y'all made me think about something. You're like, he shouldn't have said anything. And I was like, huh.
Yeah. Well, that just created the question for us that we were kind of stuck with of, what does he mean by that?
So,
and then it ends, and we were like, well, what does he mean by that?
Now I will say, after the fact, we had some people, all of our awesome YouTube viewers and Discord members, some of them were asking the same questions. Some of them were deciding that they wanted to think of answers, and I liked some of them. And I know one of the ones me and Luke liked the most was Ryan maybe watching over the box after he was dropped off there, right? I'm not saying necessarily there's a camera or something like Evil J had on the OG world box, but maybe, I mean, if you're dropped off into this unknown world, I feel like you would be watching over the box that you were dropped off at. So maybe he sees Jason and Amanda, and that's how he recognizes Amanda. Now, the question would be also, why didn't he jump on the fact that he knows Jason showed up? So those kind of things are available. But what were your thoughts when this scene was written?
See, it's tricky. Maybe we should just address the season 2 thing first, because it's tricky to talk about some of this stuff, because
Okay.
it's like
Sure.
potentially
Yeah.
future spoilers for
Yeah.
shit that hasn't been written yet.
Sure.
So I'll just say this about season 2. We don't know yet. We're like taking stock, to be honest with you. This was like, I started working on this. I sold it to Apple in September of 2020. We went into production 2 years later. We came out in May of 24, and it's just been like just one of the coolest, craziest, hardest experiences of my life. And we are just being thoughtful about it. Like I've definitely seen like a Weird Pine season 2, for instance. Like the first season, not perfect. The books are better. But it's really good. And then season 2 became a weird hospital drama for reasons beyond my control. And if we do something, it needs to be because it's an undeniable thing that we want to see.
Right.
And we might have some of that. It's also a choice of Apple's if they want to, our show is not cheap to make. So it's all to say, not to be like coy or cagey. We don't know yet. Obviously, we've spent years with these characters, now with these actors, and we know what they can do. And it's hard not to imagine storylines and to start to think about how you explore those going forward. And we definitely set it up in a way that if we wanted to do more, we could. But also, a lot of my books tend to end, like my books have definitive ends, but there's also, I like to infuse them with a little bit of an open-endedness. Like that last shot when Charlie opens the door and the light comes, that's literally the end of the book. I want the audience to take the next step in their own imagination and ask themselves what happens next. So a lot of the questions about like what I was thinking and like where things from that montage are leading, it'll be hard for me to really talk about because I don't know what the future holds, and I have ideas, but I can't like spoil.
Right.
We end up doing more.
That's
But
totally fair.
ask the question. Ask the questions. I'll be like, I can't answer that, or if I can, I will. So hit me.
Yeah, I think that is a perfect answer though, just because when it comes to, the season 1, we all said it, but Luke especially was harping on a little bit that it was a perfect season, right? We don't want what you were saying would happen about your other TV show for season 2 to happen, where we're looking at 9 episodes. We love this show. And then season 2 happens and then it's not as great, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, we've been saying since, for me, episode 7, when I said, holy shit, what's going on with all these Jasons? How are they going to finish this up in 2 episodes? I said, well, I trust Blake to figure it out. So my thoughts, and I'm sure Luke and Kyle agree, is if you guys decide to do a season 2, Kyle made a look at me. I hope you agree with me.
We'll see. I got to hear it first.
If you guys decide to do season 2 and you're involved like you were in season 1, then we'll trust that we're ready to cover it on the pod and it's going to be great. So we're in. My question is, when it comes to shows that get very popular, now Apple and you had no idea if Dark Matter was going to become very popular, how people were going to take it while it was being shot or whatever. Is there ever a time where maybe Apple says that they want something left ambiguous like the Ryan Amanda stuff so that season 2 could be possible, when knowingly like your book ended with season 1, so there's not actual more source material?
Yeah.
Even though it's all right here for you, it's all source material for you. But, could Apple tell you that and be like, hey, give us this line because we want the chance?
No, they I don't think they would do that. They were, Apple was, and I think I truly, I cannot underscore this enough. Apple just trusted us on this show. Awesome. I've had 2 other shows. I had a show called Good Behavior, which I love, Weird Pines made, and then those were, you get a lot of notes You get a lot of notes. You get a lot of people weighing in on things. And it's not that Apple and Sony didn't weigh in on things, but they ultimately really trusted us and left us alone. They let us hire who we wanted to hire. They let us tell the stories that we wanted to tell. They let us score it and do the needle drops we wanted to do. So it wasn't that dynamic, and it's one of the great things about Apple. They are it's definitely the most creator-friendly network I have ever worked with. I felt so empowered. Some days I would be on set, it would just be me and Jackie. It's like, I kind of can't believe they're just letting us do this, because it's like running a not that small of a company.
Yeah. Wow.
And so no, I mean, one of the reasons that I think the season of Dark Matter was successful, it's the pure heroine version of what we wanted to do. There's no compromises there.
Wow.
It's what we saw and envisioned, and we listened to all the smart people we surrounded ourselves with and took a lot of their advice, but ultimately it's what we wanted it to be. So no, there's never a moment they're like, I'll say this. The montage was something we really slaved over. There's a lot of debate. Some people wanted the show to end at that end when Jason slams the door shut of the box. They just walk through the corridor of Jason.
Right.
See that last POV from Jason. He looks at all of them, slams the door shut. People wanted end credits.
Could be. I mean,
well, we looked at a lot of cuts that had that, but they didn't have the energy and the hope. And Dark Matter is not just about the family. The family is important. It is where it all begins, and everything sort of flows out from them. But we have these other amazing characters who are now embodied by incredible actors who have taken them places I could never have imagined, and they are, in our minds, just as important as the family. It's not necessarily their show, but they're just as important as the family. And we thought we should do justice, because as much as some people will connect to the family, other people will connect to Leighton. Other people will connect to Amanda and to Ryan. I know I love Game of Thrones, and a lot of talked to constantly when it was airing, and it's amazing. Some people really are obsessed with Sansa, and some people could not give a shit about Sansa, but they're really obsessed with this other person.
Yeah.
And you kind of can't put all your eggs in just one basket. And what we're ultimately trying to do is show a story of these people, our entire main cast, who are entangled across worlds, and how their entanglement asks really deep and profound questions about human existence.
And it's so funny that you say it felt like you were talking to me about Jimmy Simpson and Ryan, where I am just so latched on to this man since Westworld and Always Sunny. I've just been a diehard fan. So I guess I will say, I was. Go ahead, Jimmy. You got to.
No. Well, I was just gonna say, talking about people that we find important. I have two questions, and I don't want them to slip by. How's Mechanic Ryan doing? Is number one. Is he in an asylum right now? Is he having a bad day or what?
I mean,
gonna find out maybe.
I think he's going. I think he's going through some things. I think he's going.
Yeah.
I mean, with Jason too. I don't know. I didn't realize how fucked up what Jason 2 really did until I watched the show a few months after we finished watching it. It's it's not bad enough what he did to the original Ryan.
Yeah.
Right.
It's 10x times, and he goes and just gets another version of him who's a drunk, so that he won't it's so messed up. It's dastardly.
Yes,
he did not leave that box closed for too long. He broke that shit right back open.
No, that was funny.
And that's what we're like, man, he really just broke that right back open. Question number 2: is Leighton dancing in the background of the bar when Amanda and
Raspberry Beret plays?
Yes, OG Jason are hanging.
Yes.
So
nice.
Somebody did a way better freeze frame than we could find, Luke, and I forgot to text you this because I know you were the one who was trying to figure it out, and it was a perfect freeze frame where we could tell it at least looked more like the Leighton that left OG World.
It's Leighton 3. He's got the tips. It's Leighton 3.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
awesome.
he's
And
just sitting there dancing
that
it
scene
up.
too, that added
So,
Raspberry
yeah.
Beret into my like almost daily rotation of
Oh,
songs.
I
that
love
listen
that.
to.
I love
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest controversies of what that song should be.
Oh, really?
So
Well, I'm glad it ended up that way.
Everyone weighed in, and everyone weighed in with whatever their favorite song was in
Yeah.
high school.
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
I'll give you 2 other Easter eggs. I don't know that you guys noticed. So I am in the show, and
Nice.
which you might be able to see, and my wife is in the show, but it's very and my dog is in the show, and my son is in the show.
Oh, that's
Oh,
awesome.
great.
So there's a world where it's in episode 6 when it's the montage where they're trying to like zero in on Jason's home world, and they go to this one house, and he's like, it's not my house, not
Did
my
the wrong door
wife,
color, I think he says. And
wrong door color, not my
Yeah.
wife, not my dog, not my
Yes.
fucking day. Yeah, that's Jackie and my dog, our dog Bojack, coming down the stairs.
That's
Wow.
so
That's
funny.
awesome.
That's
That is
perfect.
awesome.
I am the grizzled bar patron at the opening of that scene with Mechanic Ryan
Oh,
And,
that's so
okay.
good.
and Jason too.
Sitting at the bar.
Mhm.
I'm going back
That's
to watch right after
Yeah,
this. I'm
yeah.
finding that.
That
Yeah.
is
It's
awesome.
a writer drinking a bucket of beers at 11 in the morning. It was a real
That's-
stretch of. It was a
that's-
real. I had to go method. I had to go method for it.
yeah, yeah.
That's perfect.
And,
The
I
far
wanna-
reach
I
of
w-
your imagination.
Mhm.
I want to ask another question about Leighton. I'm sorry for the pronunciation here. Dio Okani.
That's right.
Yeah. So first of all, he shouted us out on X/Twitter a little bit after the first
Oh.
time you did. So we love
Sweet.
him over here.
Yeah.
He's
because
amazing.
I had a very extreme opinion on him when we were first introduced to him as Evil Leighton. I was very anti him, but purposefully so. And then we get introduced to the trust fund baby version of him where I just absolutely love this guy. But sticking with the evil Leighton, where Leighton 2, he's the one that ends up chasing them through the box after he gets desperate to try and find the original Jason 2.
Right.
Is it, I know that you can't give too much about the future, but is it safe to assume that that version of Leighton died? Because we saw him in really bad shape, stuck in the corridor, and I kind of doubt that he would ever pop back up, even if there was a season 2. Maybe you can't speak on that, but it seemed like he was hurting. Can we check that off the board, or is that just open-ended as well?
Assume nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like
We didn't
that.
see him die on
Yeah.
screen. That's always the rule. And
He
I
was
will
hurting.
say,
I don't know if he
No,
was going
yeah.
to be able to get his mental state to be
well, that's
properly aligned to
I mean,
direction, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anything can
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. I was expecting in that scene, I said it on the podcast, I was expecting him to just drop dead at and the episode, fade to black, while he's in the corridor just to show us. But either way, I thought it was perfect just because this is when we're being introduced to how the corridor works and everything. And just like Kyle said, this Leighton is not prepared to be in the corridor. So it's showing us the dangers of the corridor. He is half dead. All these negative emotions are going through his head. Every single door that he opens is going to be not the best world for him,
Mhm.
right? So I thought it was perfectly written in a way where it's obviously still ambiguous because we didn't see him die, but it shows us the dangers of this corridor if you're not ready for it. And
That's right.
when you're OG Jason and Amanda, you're still OG Jason, who is the person who figured it out in different universes. But, they had a lot of problems with it. And so did Evil Jay, 14 months or so until he figured it out. So having someone like Leighton who opens this box, falls in, is chasing, opening doors, not knowing what the heck is going on, I thought it was perfect showing the dangers of this box when you're not prepared.
Exactly.
Looking
Exactly.
back,
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
he's now creating infinite versions of himself now, is he not? He's just doing things, and we know
Yeah.
doing things in the corridor is
Plenty of them that
is a
did
way
die
to
then.
create
Yeah,
new things. Yeah, I like that. Assume nothing.
Assume nothing. Yes,
Yeah.
that's
It's almost an answer in
Good.
itself, but I'll leave it. I'll leave that.
yeah,
Assume nothing.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, one of the things I was doing before, like this week, before leading up to this, I was reading through your AMA you did on the Dark Matter subreddit. I love when authors do that. I love when TV shows creators do that. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was, is there something that you're finding that for this new audience, this influx of an audience for Dark Matter, is the fandom getting anything completely wrong that you're seeing be a very common occurrence across all the different platforms? or do you think that we've done a good job of breaking this down? Not our podcast, but like the fandom in general.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely like some people who are like just didn't follow it, and that's fine because again, like no shade, but you know, we wanted this to be intellectually challenging in the best of ways. I don't know. I've been surprised how well people are following what we're doing and kind of going down the path we hope they go down. It's surprising though. I mean, interestingly, it's like there was someone, you know, there who was, I mean, multiple people have said this, and I always like was sort of punching the air when they do because it's so right. It's like the right end of the show is that Daniela makes the choice.
Yes,
she's been
that's all that matters.
I mean, you know, Jason has been aggrieved, but she has also been aggrieved, and she's really the only one who can sort of get them out of this. And I love it when the people that see that, because that was absolutely our intention. It's like she takes her power back and determines her destiny, and in that way, the families.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Al, to jump off that comment where you said you wanted to make it intellectually challenging, but you also said earlier that you like having endings that are open-ended where the audience can fill in the holes. Do you ever think about the risk between those two? That feels like there's a line that you have to kind of hit between those, because if it's so intellectually challenging that everyone is thinking about every possible angle in detail, but then you get to an ending that doesn't give a definitive end to a lot of different things, and that it kind of opens it up for a lot of people being disappointed. I know some people in our comments, just in general, and again, you can't possibly make a piece of art like this that's going to appeal to everyone and everyone's going to like it, but there were people out there that were a little disappointed that there was so many open-ended things that we didn't get this definitive scientific end to.
It's a super hard target to hit, and you won't hit it for everyone. But I would also argue that like if you make something that is sort of universally, like everyone would like, probably have fucked something up. Like art is a very strong flavor, and I'm asking people to buy into this point of view that I am putting forward, and that by definition means not everyone's going to understand it or like it or be their thing. That's cool. In some, like you have a show or a book or something come out, and you hope everyone loves it. Like every creator hopes everyone loves something. But I think if everyone did, you probably didn't take risks.
That's fair.
Very true.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I close my eyes sometimes when I post an episode of ours. I'm like, I hope everyone likes it, but but it is nice, to have that perspective where at the end of the day we're creating and we're trying.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's not annoying, and like it hurts sometimes. Like you get your teeth kicked in, and a couple of reviews kicked our teeth in. But at the end of the day, I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't think that the audience and the people that I write for and make film and television for are the people who get what I'm saying. If they get it, then they get it. Those are the people. I make it for myself and for strangers. And those who don't get it, that's fine.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good mindset for me to get into. I feel like, especially people with like I have more of like a people pleasing tendency, where like if someone says something, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna remember that forever.
I mean, I hear that, and I suffer from some similar tendencies. But you have to like believe in your vision, and like people are going to come out of the woodwork and take shots at it for a million reasons, because it's not their thing, because of jealousy, because of maybe a critic doesn't want to watch a show about other paths they might have taken. I don't know what they are. But it's just like, are you blowing your own mind? Are you connecting with enough people who are feedbacking to you that like you've hit some target for them? And that's like literally all you can truly hope for.
Yeah.
And that's actually a perfect transition into this question I had written down. And I have to read a quote here because this blew my mind that this is this person's resume. But in one of our YouTube comments, this came on the back of one of the Evil Jason and OG Amanda therapy session episodes. It was probably the last one when he eventually cuts ties with her and leaves after taking it a step too far. This person said in our YouTube comments that they are a mindset and manifestation coach who also trained as an interrogator with an expertise of the subconscious mind, which is a hell of a resume. But what they ended up saying was they actually use some of the analogies that you created in the show with their real world clients. And to me, like, I'm not the writer or anything, but that's like so cool to hear.
That's really cool.
That type of feedback. Like, have people ever reached out and said how much like your books, not just Dark Matter, but all your books in general, have like changed their way of life or mindset?
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, honestly, that's why I do this shit. Other than like telling myself stories I wish existed already. I literally like about a month and a half ago, I had the craziest email from someone. And it wasn't about Dark Matter, it was about my novel, Recursion. And Recursion opens with, no, it doesn't really matter what the whole story of the book is, but it opens with this detective being called to this skyscraper in New York, and there's a woman up on a ledge, and he goes up there and tries to talk her down and tries to save her, and doesn't. And so that's just the opening. Nothing else really matters for the story. So this paramedic, this EMT, emailed me, and she said, I was reading your book, and I got a call, and we drove out to this interstate overpass, and there was this guy who was up on this bridge. He's about to jump off, and she's like, I had never really been trained for this, and I literally said what this detective in Recursion says to this woman who's about to jump, which is like, look, I know everything feels hopeless now, but this is just a moment, and moments pass. And she said that to him, and he came down off the ledge.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what? I mean, I get like a lot of people like write and say, oh, this book made me think about my life, appreciate my life, change my life. Well, I have like to have someone say, like, I use these words and it actually helped me to stop someone from jumping off of a bridge and killing themselves was like unbelievably moving and emotional and hard to process.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Jeez. And that almost, I mean, not to say that makes it all worth it, but I could see how anything else,
I mean,
but like, just all the, like you're saying, a director or rather a reviewer doesn't even want to watch a show about X, and that's like, and have fun with,
I'm like,
have fun with that. That's fine.
Honestly,
I'm over here.
I'm not writing it. I'm not writing it. For those people, I'm writing it for me and for the people who need to hear. I mean, I'm literally just sharing my experiences of my life, and there are people out there who will connect to that, and it will hit something in them, some target. Those are the people who I do this for.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Amazing. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I know we've taken up a lot of your time, so I don't have too much else written down, but it would be so against my brand for the Dark Matter podcast if I did not ask about the snap, because this was something I was so obsessed with through the first 4 episodes. Maybe it was the first 4, where almost 100% of the time we had a transition between the different universes. You didn't even know it. You were hearing that snap. But at some point, the plot, it became important to have those fake out scenes, like specifically the criminal. We called him the criminal Jason world, where Jason's going up. You think he's confronting evil Jason, but he's not. And if you were using the snap, if you were overly using the snap, it would have given some things away. But my question, I guess, comes down to, when did you decide to put that snap in there and like cause that jarring effect that really focused you in versus leaving it out?
First, before I answer that, ask me about that world. That should be the last thing we say. Okay. So the snap. I wish Shaq you were on for this. We had a lot of fights about the snap. The snap was very controversial. I believe it was I don't remember honestly whose idea it was that we had some auditory device to signal changing worlds. It might have been Joe Leonard, who edited the first 3 episodes. Such a genius. I should talk to him. He's like, actually, so much of why the show is good is editors, and he just crushed it. But the snap came up, and it was super helpful in those early episodes, because it's almost like a Pavlovian thing. You're like, oh, we're going to another world. And I was of the mind, I never liked the snap, and I'll just tell you why. I thought it was like just. I guess I was a purist of sounds and things. I just like, whatever, let people figure it out. but I was convinced that it was helpful, and I 100% believe it was helpful in the early episodes. I thought that, and that's where the confusion lives. The confusion lives in this, particularly in episodes 1 and 2. It's like I agree that like the audience needs a little hand holding. Who's Jason 1? Who's Jason 2? As they're getting, comfortable with this premise. I was like, by the time we get to episode 3 and 4 and beyond, it's pretty obvious. Like this Jason's in the snow.
Right.
This Jason's obviously
Right,
in
right.
Chicago. It's like, do we really need a snap to like tell the audience? And so I was of a mind of like, oh, we should back off the snap when the snap is there for when there's confusion or the potential for confusion. Otherwise, it starts to feel a little heavy-handed. Jackie was like, oh, we should always have the snap. We should take it throughout. I don't remember exactly I'd be curious to know, when was the last snap used? Maybe you guys know, in the show. When was the last?
I believe
Luke will
they
tell you-
continued to use it, but it just wasn't every time was the whole
Yes.
thing. I thought it was purposeful, being like,
Mhm.
sometimes we're not following the OG Jason, and that's why we didn't get the snap in that point. And I was analyzing everything, trying to figure out if there was purpose beyond it. But your explanation is perfectly sound. And by the end of it, I totally agree, because it would have been a little distracting once everybody was in on the joke of
Oh
what
yeah.
the joke,
Now all of a
but-
sudden you're snapping every other second.
right,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, and also like, do you snap when you go from like a world to the corridor? Because technically, the corridor is like
All
the
worlds.
backstage of the multiverse. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's nowhere and everywhere. Like, do you snap in? And
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I stand by it, but there's a lot of controversy.
It was definitely interesting, because that made us think, and Luke was honed in on it. He can't tell you the last snap, but he'll be able to tell you, maybe not anymore, Luke, but when we were doing the podcast, the first time you didn't do the snap, because he specifically pointed out, saying, what the heck, where's the snap? Because that was his theory. And again, he said, well, maybe my theory is just wrong. And, you just gave us the answer. So, it was interesting. And Luke was ready. He was like, where's the snap? What's going on?
I feel like that was almost like one of the first things you opened the podcast episode too. It was just like, so we didn't
for
get
the
a
first
snap.
couple.
Yeah.
I hit a
It was,
point where I said, I'm no longer bringing up the snap, and then I just stopped bringing it up. But I really like it in the beginning. Like it sounded so good, and it just like really makes you sit up, like when you're hearing it, because something else is just drawing you into place and focusing you.
It's huge. There's a huge sound design component behind this. I know it sounds like it's not just a snap. It's a snap. It's combined with the sound of like a water droplet and a bunch of other little aspects. Like we had an amazing sound designer who designed like what the corridor sounds like when it expands, what the door sounds like, and the snap was something also that we spent a lot of time trying to dial in. Apparently, a lot of people think it just sounds like the Nintendo Switch, which I've listened to it. I don't think it is. That's literally just a snap. This is not just a snap. There's a lot else going on.
Yeah, that's just a funny unintended maybe consequence of just it going to the masses. If everyone just runs with anything in their own way.
I was actually surprised at the amount of people that, when Luke was talking about the snap a lot in one episode, I guess it would have been the episode when it first doesn't happen, going with his theory, a lot of commenters were like, what the hell are you talking about? What's snap? We're like, we're like, come on, it's a snap.
That's
wait, let's continue on that criminal world, because I don't want to leave without talking about that, because it seemed like you wanted to bring something up about the backstory.
I don't know if y'all talked about this or not, but as we filmed it, you write things, and like you start to have ideas in your mind about what's really behind the scenes, but off page or off screen. So in Criminal World, what I imagined was, this is the backstory, and it's really fucked up when you think about it. So what really happened is Criminal Jason got into a torrid affair with Criminal World Amanda. Ended up killing her and going to prison for it.
Wait, didn't you say something like that, Kyle?
I'm 99% convinced someone commented that in our YouTube comments. I might have to go back and look. I don't think I said that. Maybe.
Maybe you were reading the I don't know. I feel like I don't think it was exactly that, but I remember there being some kind of affair and this and that.
That's funny.
Yeah,
well, not funny, but funny.
There was a lot of cool theories for that world, but there was a lot of commenters saying, what if that's one of the worlds that evil Jason showed up in before he gets to the OG world that he finally wants to take over, quote unquote, and he causes mayhem there and this and that. And there's a lot of cool theories for Criminal World.
I will debunk something I've seen some people say. Some people thought that it was actually Evil Jay that went to the art gallery and talked to blonde Daniela, or that we were seeing other versions
yeah.
of
No,
Evil Jay.
we called that out. Yeah, you see the rubber band.
No.
Yeah.
You gotta see
Yeah,
I
the
was
rubber band. We
too
track that stuff.
locked in, to know to not.
Kyle
know
was
that
looking at fingers left
that
and
was our
right.
boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
we were
also,
laughing too with the
sorry,
criminal
Kyle.
world of like. Did you ever think of what the consequences of that would be for the Jason in prison, where she gets a call to the police that's like, my husband's here, and he's like, I'm in jail, like I
No,
wasn't
there are
anywhere.
prison guards running down and opening his cell. He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
No, it's really funny when you think about like the mayhem that's left in the wake of
Yeah.
Jason and Amanda's sojourn.
There-
Yeah.
There's so many funny
Okay.
things, and this isn't even a question, but Kyle, I know you will appreciate me bringing this up. The scene where OG Jason is smoking the cigar.
Uh-huh.
In the
So
yeah,
funny.
Joel Edgerton having to act that out, and it's when we say OGJ or Ride or Die, like he's not the purest J. They're all versions, and they all could be pure and this and that, but he's just so like he wasn't comfortable in that situation,
No.
and you could tell like he was doing it on purpose to get put in jail, but it was so funny.
Yeah, when he looks,
And-
the face he gives her when she's like, "So I had to get my manager," and he just still has the cigar in his mouth, and he like gives her little puppy dog eyes and kind of says yes. I
Am
laughed
bothering
so
anyone
hard.
here?
I laughed
One of-
so hard.
One of our other favorite things that like running jokes for the whole podcast also came from the criminal world, being that was our favorite version of Charlie. The
Yeah.
what do we
yeah,
say? The
slick
scene
back
some
hair.
shit, Charlie.
Slick back
Yeah,
hair,
he's-
slick back
Yeah.
hair.
The badass
Could
Charlie.
have been in the Outsiders, you know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's so good. That's
Yeah,
so good.
that was
okay.
a badass Charlie.
Now
Yeah, it was
this
a
is
badass
going to
Charlie.
be a little bit of a break from the Dark Matter specific content, but Charlie canonically is an anime fan.
That's
Do you
right.
have an idea of what animes Charlie is a fan of, and are you yourself a fan of any animes?
So I mean, I love who's the guy? He just did the Boy and the Heron, Howl's Moving
Oh,
Castle.
Miyazaki,
Love him.
or that
love
might
it.
be his name, but Studio Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli. My daughters are massive anime fans. They
Okay.
love One Piece. They love Demon Slayer. All of it,
Mhm.
like
Yes.
obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I come down and watch, and I think it's cool. And sit with them and watch it sometimes. I wouldn't say I'm a massive anime fan. I admire it, but it was more of a nod to the girls.
Oh, I like that.
Love to
I like
hear that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Huge One Piece and Demon Slayer fans here too. So
Oh,
yeah,
love
that's
that.
awesome.
Love that.
Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
great. We actually covered Demon Slayer on the podcast. So
And the One Piece live action.
way.
yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, One
I
Piece
love
live
that.
action. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
It's
One
so
Piece for us
interesting
is
'cause,
like the,
yeah.
for us, we always say when we're trying to pitch it to people because it's so long, we always say it's the greatest story ever told. That's like our absolute mecca.
I thought I got my daughter the entire One Piece collection for Christmas.
I would faint.
I didn't. I apparently got like I have no idea what I'm doing. I got this beautiful
Probably
thing. So here you go.
1/10 of it.
All of it. She's like,
Yep.
yeah, that's like a 20th of it.
There's like
Yeah.
there's 1,000 chapters, so that doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me at all.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Luke,
It's interesting.
you have what,
Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
I have about 50 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my son listens. He's 19. He listens to your podcast.
Ooh.
And I
Love
don't
to
think he
hear it.
was impressed with anything until like he started listening to the podcast. Because like kids like 16, 17, 18, like
Yeah.
that's how they, in a weird way, that's how they consume media. They don't.
Yeah.
They listen to other people talk about it. They might watch it, but there's something to them that's comforting and interesting and engaging about listening to other people talk about media. And I don't think he was actually really impressed with the show until he heard like Phil's podcast. And he's like,
Bring him on.
a podcast. You're on a podcast.
Bring them on.
That's funny.
Bring him
Well,
on. Let's talk.
We talked about it too at the end of like it's I guess now at this age, especially in their age group, and even for us now, I mean, we're a little older than that, obviously late 20s, early 30s, but it was such a good like outlet of community for us. It's
Yeah,
just
it
like
was.
the connections, all of the comments and the people joining Discord and even on Twitter. It was just like the show was so fun in that way. And that's why we're just big fans. I know Bingetown TV is the name, but of just this weekly drop. I mean, the show would have been good, of course, if the whole season dropped at once, but just the week to week and the theorizing, like we love that. I miss that so much about TV a lot these days. And so I'm so glad that this was a week to week thing.
It's
So
interesting.
point television, is that what you call
I
it?
came around on that too. In the beginning, I was a little annoyed, especially as the show started, and it kind of took a minute to like find its audience. It was like they just dropped the whole thing. But then
Right.
like we
Yeah.
got to like episodes 4 and 5, and then like the people really started coming, and what you get is you get a sustained conversation
Yeah.
about
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And it kind of makes you, I think, pay a little more attention when something is dropped weekly. And we describe this as a put your fucking phone down show, because there's
Yep.
no way you're gonna keep track of this show while you're like scrolling and doing something else.
Right.
And I think that appointment viewing sort of lends itself to like, no, I'm gonna actually pay attention to this.
Yeah.
I remember the first 3 or 4 episodes. I was on the podcast saying, what's going on? Why am I not hearing more about this on social media? I want to talk to more people. I don't want to talk to Luke and Kyle all the time. I don't want to talk to other people about this. And like you were saying, 4, 5, 6, all of a sudden it starts
Yeah.
building. And the weeks in between give it that chance, right?
Yeah.
If you throw it out there and people see the binge or watch the binge and they're saying, oh, this is a great show, it'll still get out there. But the week to week, giving it the chance, it was crazy how it really did jump, especially in social media with people talking about it. And Kyle was bringing it up. It probably has been, I think it definitely was the best community we've had engagement we've had for any show we've covered. And you were talking about, you wrote this show for certain people, and we joked about it right away. This show was written for us. We love sci-fi. We love these types of shows. We love it when we can theorize. We love it when we feel rewarded when certain answers are given. And having our Discord, our YouTube comments, all of that, being able to talk about it with everybody, and having you jump in on Twitter, X, it was amazing. It was a great time, a blast.
Well, thank you, and I can't thank you guys enough for spent hours talking about this show, and it was fascinating to sort of experience it again through your perspective, because it was a thing that we lived with a long time and put it away and you forget about it, and it was just it was such a pleasure. And I could speak for myself, and I know a lot of our crew, and who really appreciate and love listening every week.
Yeah.
And while I am a huge advocate for the limited series, and if it swan songs out and this is it, I will walk away saying this was a damn near 10 out of 10. But if there is a season 2 announcement, we will be reaching out and having another conversation with you if you're available, because we will pick your brain all day, every day.
I will say, either way, if it comes out at some point that there's no season 2 coming, or if there is a season 2 coming, either one, we're going to talk to you, because there's questions to be asked when it comes to certain things, and you can't give us those answers until you know if there's a season 2 or not. So
and I will honestly be at peace either way too. I'm so happy with what we achieved, and it's very rare when you set out to do something and you actually feel like you kind of hit the target that you were aiming for, and it's because of who we cast, our crew, and we talked about how amazing our crew and our directors were. We were so fortunate across the board, and it is truly rare in and I haven't had that much experience in film and television. I've been very lucky and had a few things made, but I've seen a lot, and it doesn't take much to make something go really, really wrong. So when you see something that comes together right, Shogun, The Bear, like those are they're special for a variety of reasons, but mostly because they brought the right people around them.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. I can't think of a better way to end it. I'm honest. I mean, I know we even mentioned, we're like, maybe like an hour. We're at an hour and 40. It's all right.
Just like our normal podcast, we could talk for hours, but we're gonna have to cut it.
Thank you so much, Blake.
Yes,
we really
Blake,
appreciate it.
so
This was a dream for us. We can't ask for more than talking to the creator of one of our favorite TV shows. So seriously, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Seriously, my pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And if we talk again, one of us at least will have read some more of your books. We can talk about some other books as well.
Actually, one last question, and sorry, one last question, and this is actually good. This matters to me. So, if we read the book, is there anything from the book, concepts, maybe not necessarily characters or anything, but that could bleed into season 2 that would matter if there's a season 2? Spoiler wise for us.
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Then
I'm telling you, man, we left it on the field. We left it on the field.
That's awesome.
We didn't hold anything. We held nothing back. There's one really cool thing from the book that is not in the show, but it's for. We really kicked the tires, and we're like, logistically, that does not make sense.
All right, sounds good.
I like
that.
It.
Means
it's
I'm
nice
reading.
It's a little breadcrumb for Jimmy right there.
Yeah,
that's perfect. All right. Well, once again, can't say enough.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Gents, such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a nice
Tell
night.
your
Too.
son we said
All right,
thanks for
guys.
listening too.
Yeah, sure will.
Yeah.
His name's Aiden. He's at the end. He's in the end of 108. Redhead.
Oh.
with the hair in front
All
of
right,
me.
shout out to
all
Aiden.
right.
Just
Shout
brief.
out to
Just a
Aiden.
brief. All right.
Yeah,
Shout
I
out
like
to your
that.
daughters for watching and reading One Piece.
Yeah. Also, yeah. For having fantastic taste.
Shout out to
Absolutely.
everybody. Yeah. Love it.
See
All
ya.
right, y'all.
Have a good
Be
one,
well.
Blake. Thank you.